What's up, people? I just wasted €6 in exchange to watch a terrible commercial for a Volvo car disguised as a Lara Croft movie. Seriously. So it had been some time since I went to the theater, and with the last film I saw being actually pretty damn great. No wait, that's not true. The last film I saw was Black Panther, and that was anything except great. But since it was so forgettable, it doesn't count. Let's pretend the last movie I saw was Phantom Thread, a film I very much recommend because it was awesome. And since that was awesome, I had to see something crappy to balance the scales. Tomb Raider. Keep in mind, I just chose this film because I think Alicia Vikander is very attractive. That's it, that's the sole reason. All the trailers gave me the impression that this was going to be a massive pile of shit. And they were right. I'm having trouble coming up with any redeeming qualities. This thing is bad from beginning to end. Not because it's based on a video game, or because of a female lead, but because it's poorly constructed, awfully acted, visually ugly and artificial, and just trash. Let me start from the beginning. And yes, there will be some spoilers, but it's not like anyone watching a review from a YouTube channel with less than 10 subscribers is seriously considering whether or not they should watch Tomb Raider. It's an awful movie, nobody needs to see it. The film tells the story of Lara Croft, a young woman whose father disappeared 7 years ago and was basically pronounced dead. She took this really hard, and for some reason, despite their relationship being pretty good, as far as daughters and fathers' relationships go, she decided not to accept any of the inheritance money or have anything to do with her father's companies. It's not really explained why she wants to be poor, but let's just go with it. One day she's arrested, which leads to her old guardian asking her nicely to accept the fact that her father is most likely never coming back and sign documents giving Lara control of everything, preventing the sale of the companies to a third party. This in turn gives the movie an excuse to have Lara start digging into her father's life and realize exactly what he was up to. He was a furry. No, I'm joking. After his wife died, he wanted to find proof that the afterlife and the supernatural were real, and for some reason he decided to fixate his obsession on a Japanese witch, and that's the objective of the film, to find out where this witch is buried. Tomb Raider is awful on every level. The writing is not the most noticeable flaw, but it's the thing I want to talk about first. In video games, the world doesn't exist, or the story doesn't progress, unless the protagonist is there to make it happen. Here, it's just like that. Unless Lara is present and conscious, the plot will not move forward, even if it makes sense for the plot to move forward while she isn't there. Example, while Lara was passed out, the antagonist went through her backpack and discovered a book with the location of the thing he was trying to find, the witch. But he only gives the order to move to this location after Lara wakes up and after a conversation between the two of them, which only resulted in her knowing that this guy is the bad guy. That's it. Instead of giving orders that would most likely help him get to see his family sooner, his mission would be over, he waits for the main character. And this wasn't done so he could trick her into helping him later. That's way too smart for this film. Instead of treating her nicely and manipulating her until they find the witch, he dismisses her as another slave to help carrying the equipment. And I say slave in a very literal sense, despite this island being very hard to locate and most people whose boats come ashore just die in a shipwreck, the antagonist and his band of mercenaries still have plenty of fishermen and people who just happen to make it to the island. I'm serious, this movie is a joke when it comes to consistency. First of all, it's established that it's almost impossible to find the island even if you know what you are looking for. Lara and the guy she convinces to take her find the island instantaneously. And when she's there, the villain tells her the island is a hard place to get in, even a harder place to get out. Which is immediately contradicted with him saying that sometimes smugglers who are paid to bring people to America or Japan, sometimes they decide to drop them off in this island, just because. Maybe the smugglers were adrenaline junkies and wanted to see if they could do it. Maybe that's why. And to make things even worse, the film ends with a helicopter coming to save everyone. Apparently that was the way to go. Not by boat, but by helicopter. Maybe someone should have thought of that. This, by the way, is just a small sample of how nobody involved with the creation of the story gave a shit. As the movie goes on, there are plenty more inconsistencies and things that just don't make any sense. Like the father who starts his adventure wanting to prove that the supernatural exists, but once he's on the island, he stops trying to find the witch and just starts believing in magic. For no reason. And there's also the question of why didn't he bring the book with the location of the witch with him? The only reason Lara is able to track the island is because she finds a box with all of her father's research, including a book with the location of the island and where the witch was buried within it. But he never returned from the island, so that means he either memorized the location or made a copy of the book. Both options don't work. For starters, it's very doubtful anyone will take him seriously and believe his words that he memorized a location to a place very few people have been to, and him making a copy of the book doesn't work within the logic of the film. After all, in the case of his death, he leaves a tape asking Laura to burn all of his research, so it doesn't make sense to make copies of anything. I think I've made my point. The writing is bad. The action is also pretty bad. In fact, it's terrible. It's hard to care about anything that's happening when it's clear as day that what you're seeing is just an actress holding on to a piece of prop with fake jungle background as her background. The green screen makes even Black Panther look good. There's nothing special about these special effects. They're shit. Just like the camera movement was shit. Whenever they were trying to do a tracking shot, those shots where the camera follows the characters without cutting to another scene, it was painful. You could barely see the environment. Everything was shaking and just visually repulsive. I think there was only one time where that worked, but that was a stealth scene where the subjects weren't running. So if the film had to fuck up that, it would have been even more incompetent than it already is. The flashback sequences were interesting, as in, they had really bad child acting, really bad adult acting. This guy gave the most robotic and one-note performance I have seen in a while, and the color palette. It's like they put a filter and remove as much brightness as possible, so to give the impression that what's happening is not happening in present time. Something completely useless, since anyone with a brain who was following the story could easily realize it was a fucking flashback. The puzzles, all of them looked hard as hell, and every time Laura solved them in the blink of an eye. And it didn't really look like she solved them completely. Like the first thing she has to solve is this Japanese Rubik's Cube, and she barely changed the thing, and voila! A clue comes out. I don't know, I could be just unfamiliar with Japanese Rubik's Cubes, but the puzzles didn't come off in a positive manner. The soundtrack was also not the greatest thing ever, whenever it didn't just come off generic and let's put what's popular and well known, even if it doesn't complement the tone of the scene, it was as forgettable as the scenes themselves. And the ending was pure trash. I don't even understand what they were trying to do. They give the impression it was her guardian that was behind the mercenaries all along, but then the movie ends with Laura smiling. Like, what the fuck? And that was a fake ending, by the way. After it fades to black, it fades back, and Laura goes to the shop where she had to sell her father's necklace, sees some guns, and decided she must buy guns for no reason. She didn't even use fire weapons on the island. She used a bow and arrow. This ending was worse than anything I could ever imagine. It gives the impression she's now going to track down her guardian and kill the bitch. Complete trash. There was only one thing I liked in this film. Yes, there was one thing. That in the end, the witch was just someone who happened to have a contagious disease and not some magic crap. Although it didn't make that much sense that what the disease did to a person was the same exact thing the black liquid from Prometheus did to a person. They just start acting like zombies and regurgitating black goo. And when in the legends about this witch, they specify she would leave oceans of blood, or something about blood, behind her, you would think people in the past would know the difference between red blood and black goo. But I don't know, maybe the filmmakers thought this effect looked cooler or something. Tomb Raider is a film with very few, if any, redeeming qualities. I just like that one aspect, that the witch wasn't really a witch, but even that's something you could easily anticipate. It's not like the execution of this moment was groundbreaking or masterful. It was pretty meh. I'm giving Tomb Raider a 2 out of 10. The movie sucks. The acting is cookie cutter, the soundtrack is forgettable, the cinematography is garbage, the plot makes very little sense, it's very formulaic, the characters have no depth whatsoever, and it's not an entertaining film. It's just tedious. I would not recommend this to anyone, even Black Panther fans. Anyway, hopefully the next time I talk about a film will be something I can recommend. Something safe for you to watch. For now, this is it. Thanks for watching, hope you like it, comment below, down below, leave an upvote for that algorithm, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!